the tool and the new version of the platform being launched, I started to think about what would it be like to have a free conversation series. I have always been like vaguely interested in having a podcast. I did briefly have a podcast. I did about 5 episodes or something a few years ago. Just could not. I just could not. And I have so much respect for people who have podcasts. Like, I think, don't Google it, okay, please, because it obviously I'll die. But I'm not a person who can take on an admin process around the creative task that like feels like it takes over. So the conversation is like amazing. I love having the conversation and I love the process of then getting that recording up onto the tool and looking at like, oh, is there like a YouTube clip that I can put with this? Is there like are there 3 books that I can put into flip cards that people recommended in the conversation? Is there a quote that I can put? Um, who else's work on the portal is like relevant to what was here in the conversation, and can I put links to that as well? It feels like a really creative process, like representing the recording of the conversation really well. Whereas when I was briefly trying to do a podcast, I just felt so stuck in like the notion of editing the conversation to make it as quote unquote good as it possibly can be. I don't do any editing at all for spirals. The only time I would is say if somebody contacted me afterwards and said, I'm really, yeah, I feel really embarrassed about something I said, or I shouldn't have said that, or whatever, I would obviously make efforts to cut that out for someone. But in general, I don't do any editing at all. And that just feels like incredibly freeing for me in terms of my time and my like headspace and decision making capacities. But also again, like another anti-capitalist practice. It's like no wonder we all are in conversations being like, oh, I don't know if I articulated that correctly enough, or like, did I say that right? Does that make sense? Because we're listening to all these like extremely edited like almost like filtered conversations where we're only really getting like the best bits of the conversation, but we forget that and we're like, oh, everyone else is so much more articulate than me. So I actually really enjoy like sitting in the spirals chats and being like, oh, hang on, I've lost my train of thought, or like, wait, what was I talking? Or like, that was a tangent. Let's try and like regather ourselves because I see it as a really important practice of just being human together and not pretending that we need to sort of perform a certain level of being able to express complex ideas. So I've kind of jumped ahead a little bit there. Let me back up. So it's a free conversation series. I invite people to come on and be my guest. And the topics are anything that I feel is relevant to navigating the complexity of life in the polycrisis. That's about it. So it can be a broad range of topics that we're discussing. I really like to have a mix of like more high profile, well-known people who maybe have like big Instagram followings or whatever, and people who are far less well known, but are like well known to me, whose work I really respect and who I already know that I'm going to really enjoy talking to. Maybe they've been in like one of my groups, or maybe we've been, in other spaces together over the years, or whatever it is. And I would really recommend that as an approach because it sort of helps with. You might think that if you get a really high profile guest, you're going to get a load of new subscribers. That's actually really not my experience at all. So when a high profile guest comes along, they are far less likely, I don't mean this as a judgment, just like objectively, they're far less likely to be talking to their followers about coming on your thing if you're not that well known. Than someone who has a small audience who is really delighted to be coming on your thing and sees it as their own opportunity to grow their audience. So there's a difference in like how it gets shared. And it's not necessarily that people with bigger audiences bring more people with them. And when they do bring more people with them, I see in general that people who come from high profile people are less likely to like stick around and engage with other elements of my work than people who come from elsewhere because they would just come in to see their like favorite high profile person. They weren't really that interested in me, and I obviously didn't really win them over that well in the conversation. So I think it's nice to have a mix. Don't get me wrong, like it is super exciting. It is really exciting when you ask someone to come on and you're like, oh my God, they're never going to say yes to this. And then they do. And it's a buzz to like bring a new voice and a new perspective into a conversational space that you're holding, and to know that people who are loyal to your series as like listeners or attendees, that they're going to be excited that this high profile person is there and that they can chat to them too. But I really love the opportunity to offer the kind of platform that I'm building within the portal, offer that up to people who I respect their work, and I want them to be able to be more well known too. And those people, often it's where the most ease is in the conversation that then translates into really fun sessions for everyone. So it's kind of like a podcast with an audience in the room, but everyone can join in. So it's 90 minutes, usually for about the first half of the session. It's me and the guest having like back and forth, back and forth. And then about halfway through, I'll open up and see like who's got comments, who's got questions, what do we want to get into? And it's different every time. Sometimes it's like incredibly dynamic, like loads of people are dying to speak. And other times people are a little bit slower and more hesitant to share. But there's always a rich conversation of some kind that emerges there. Um, Making the invitation for people to come on. Yes, that I had on Spirals was Louisa Toxved Munch, who some of you might know through Instagram and TikTok fame, who is a critical theory, critical theorist. And I she already had like a massive profile, and I was like, she's my dream opening guest because I just love her. And so I just emailed her and I was just like, hey, I really love your work, especially this and this and this. I do some work on this platform with these values. You can have a look at the website here if you're interested. I think people would love to hear from you. I'm starting this conversation series. I'd love you to be the first guest. What do you think? Not really expecting even necessarily to hear back from her. And she just came back and was like, yeah, let's have a call. And we had a call, and then we did the session, and it was brilliant, if I do say so myself. So I think don't hesitate to make the request. If there is a person who just happens to have a higher profile, who you genuinely really respect their work, like, you'd be so excited to speak to them, and you know that you're kind of like you've done enough groundwork to be able to have like a really good solid conversation with them about the things that they are interested in and the things that they are working on. um, so yeah, it feels like sometimes people kind of ask me as if there's some secret to getting high profile people, and I'm like, oh yeah, you just need to like ask in a really meaningful way, in a way that is like really in integrity. Of course I wouldn't just go and like ask, I don't know, like there has to be that connection between like your work and their work, I think. But I also do think saying a little bit about the platform is really useful for people who have that values alignment with the platform, because I would also talk to those people as I make the invitation about like, this will help us bring more people to the platform. This helps us to bring awareness to what we're trying to do. And within the platform, there's all this free, brilliant stuff that people can access. So just giving that sense of why they might be interested in popping up on here as well. One of the reasons that I wanted to offer this series, as well as that opportunity to have like something new, something really novel and interesting and exciting and collaborative. I also wanted a way to build my mailing list away from Meta. So when I came off Instagram at the end of last year, I have a really small email list. So I've been in business for a long time, but I would regularly, like, I don't want to say call, but I can't think of another word. I would regularly basically say to people, if you want to stay on, you need to opt back in, because I was changing not changing, but developing what I was doing so often that I did not want to feel like I was emailing people who signed up 5 years ago and we'd kind of like diverged. So at that time, I only had an email list of about 210 people, I think, when I was coming off Instagram, which is not a lot. I had about 9,500 followers on Instagram. So it felt like a big, I was like losing contact with a lot of people. Obviously, they were not completely engaged. Um, and I think my Sunday email now goes to about 430 people. So all those extra people that now get my Sunday emails have come through my free resources on the portal or thereabouts. There might be like a handful of people who've just kind of tipped up on my website and come through there. So that's a good couple of hundred people in the last 6 months who have come largely through spirals. Some of them, I've done a couple of other like one-off random things. I did an anti-capitalist workshop for like pricing workshop that was free, and some people did come through there. But there's more than that. That 200 is just the ones who have now kind of like funneled all the way through, sorry, to receiving my regular Sunday note.